Okay, my friends, you get ready for this. We're going to go through my Notoes. These are feet that don't have toes, but they look just like, almost like human feet. And they have a tibia and a fibula. Now, I believe. Now, I also have one, a complete leg of one that I don't think has any bones. And I'll show you, we're going to go through this in some form of detail, but I don't think there's bones in here. There's the foot, and these are the springs that drive the motion of the foot. And I can show you this because I have another one eroded in much better shapes that we can see. But it looks like almost like plates of tendon sandwiched in muscle or something underneath there. I don't know what it is. But these little circles, these are not sea creatures or something like that. Those are springs built into the feet of the spring toes. Now this is the one right here. Look, this is the kind of springs that drive that foot. And when I say drive it, I mean make it work. When you step on the front of your foot like this front here would hit first and push up. This is completely perfect, spring-loaded, just like this. On this pin, there's an attachment here that would pull this in. So you have a spring here, and it comes right back down. That's the heel, and there is no question. It's identical to the heel, even on a modern day foot, and I'll show you that in a second. This strap right here is the tendon. It would have run right up to the bone, which came down and sat in that cradle. Or maybe it wasn't a bone. Maybe it was some kind of tendon. But this is what we have here. You see that? Remember this round thing and this strap coming up. And you see how it's all gummy looking here? Gooey, the little spots? That's because it's a tendon, and that's the abrupt transition creates a wrinkle zone. That's the wrinkle zone. And here's what that looks like in a normal person. It came from that ball, straight up, and it would have hooked up to the bone that came down, but it snapped right here. All right, we just saw it a second ago. Here it is right here. The bone would have come down here. This was heading up to attach to the bone, and it snapped right here. This is that heel, and actually here is the heel. This is there's a real gnarly spot right underneath the bottom of the heel, and you have one too, and I do too. Underneath where you make impact all the time, it's right there. And that strap is the tendon that would have run up to meet with the main bone, possibly, maybe not even a bone. These are the things we have to look at. I have several different types right here in my shop. And Tish Egerton found these out here in, oh boy, I think she's in Missouri. But let me show you something. This basically, I think it was a Noto, and it eroded enough that we can see there are apparently toes inside. Here, I don't know. These holes you're going to see in all my stuff, well, not all, but most, there's going to be some drilled deep holes in there. And what happened was I was going to take DNA tests of everything and get them done, which I did. And I can't find anybody to do them. But it's not hard to do this. It's very simple. And I know how to do it so that there's no possibility of contamination. And you end up getting it out of the hole, but it has to be done upside down so that nothing can fall into it. Of course, all the extra precautions and all kinds of stuff. to make sure that you don't get anything but what's in here. And what you're going to get in there, because you just drilled in there, is going to be fresh, uncontaminated biology. These things, it's all biology. So let's just go a little deeper with this. I got a ton of stuff on these Notoes, and I got some of the craziest looking ones. And I don't have just one type. It looks like they were like manufacturing. I'm trying to figure out a way to do it better and end up with toes. These didn't have toes built into them where you could articulate so well with your little toesies. With a big hunk like this, you think about this. You're walking, all you got a big lump on the end. You hit something, there's a big lump. Boom, 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 boom. You can't, there's going to surfaces. It's not going to be as workable as having a whole bunch of different independent parts, which are your toes. So these were predecessors to toes, and I think they might even, some of them, be predecessors to bones. I don't think there's any bones in there. This is just, actually I have this here, but I'd have to, I got so many things going on that I'd have to have somebody investigate this in addition to myself. But it does look like some kind of manufactured pins and these things here and springs. It looks to me, I could be totally wrong, but I know I'm not wrong about this one. That's the heel, that's the strap, these are the springs, and there is no bones in there. The springs make it work this way. I believe this one here has springs too, and I'm not sure it's the exact same style as that one, but I believe the pin is right here and the springs run this way. When you step on them, they load up backwards and they hit this. It looks like a sole, but it's like a hit so that the springs have some place to push against. So they're loading up the spring and it can automatically drop right back down. So it's not too bad. And this is right here is where the tibia would sit. So this, I'm relatively certain, had a bone. The tibia would be here, the fibula would be here. I have another one I can show you, which I will, that's absolutely fabulous. Another a very small Noto. And then I've got the Oompa Loompa. We got all kinds of stuff going on. So let's get started. All right, so we're going to look at this Noto a little bit, and I have the other ones. Now, there's giant. They were giants too. Everything, there was big, medium, small, all different sizes. You see that? That's a foot, and it's laying upside down, and that's the heel ball right there. Let's see if we can see that anatomically. And yes, we can. There it is right there. Now, what we were just looking at was a no-toe. You didn't see any toes on that. Let's go back and look at it again. That's a no-toe. So this was prior to toes, but it still had the heel and so forth. You see how this stuff is coming off the edge here? That's all like thick skin. The foot and your hands and so forth have this really heavy-duty skin. And this is the padding of the bottom of the foot. And there's that ball right there. And all these bones in this particular area, I'm certain, were body parts from this particular creature. Human, or I don't know what you want to call them. Now, the one we were just looking at was absolutely a no-toe. There was just nothing there for no-toes. This one here appears to have the toes, but whatever was on top here more or less has eroded away. It looks to me, it's kind of hard to tell, but it appears that these toes were basically on their own. And I'm going to show you one that I believe is related to this type of foot. Now, these are the toes. It's a good size. And there's where one of the bones sat down on this. And again, this is different than what we have now, so I'm not sure whether this was where the fibula would have been, and that's the tibia, but it's something along those lines. That's the back, obviously, of the foot, and it comes out. Remember this, I think I can explain. You see how it looks like it's almost pushed in there like a sausage? Let me show you something. You see this? This is how the other one looked like it was pushed in like a sausage almost. You know, these are feet. And this looks to me like the foot comes down and then the toes are like pushed into little pockets. I don't know what else to say. All right, it looks to me like these were like little sausages, and these ones down here popped off, and the outer layer of stuff just sort of fell down. But there was supports underneath, just like there is for this one, which looks like the big toe of a no-toe after it starts to erode. That's all I can take from that. So, as far as I'm concerned, these were plugged with toes. So this is a whole nother style. Okay, this is your leg bone. The tibia is the big bone, and then the fibula is this little flap, and it hangs on the side. Now, this is identical to what you have here. There's a little tiny dimple there on the bottom, and then there's a couple hooks to hang over the edge. And this has that little dimple right there. And then this was what attached here. And that allows you to rock your foot and all that stuff. And then I show exactly where that little spot is that attaches to. And because it died laying flat out on that side, it just sort of pushed it off. Everything boiled in the Great Flood. For a year, they claim, the oceans boiled. Smithsonian says that. But there's a little dimple in there. I can feel it with my finger. It's right there. And that's for that thing to sit in there, and that's how the ligaments hold everything down. I mean, the tendons hold everything together with tension. And that's, so it's all, and this is very, very similar. That's a no-toe. This is the flat style. Now, I don't know if this is the same as this one or not. It's close. But I have a batch of them to go through. All right, this is really cool. This is a little no-toe, and that is the right foot. And right there, this area that's broken off is where the fibula would have come down. The tibia sits right there, and alongside of it would have been attached right to that spot would have been the fibula. And this died laying on its side, this side here. See how that's flat? All right, now it fell off, basically just boiled off. I'm going to show that in a microscope. It's so cool. This whole piece just left. But right there should have been where the fibula attached to the second bone. All right, we're going to take a look at it in a microscope. All right, you can see, if you look at it, you can see exactly what I'm talking about. And that whole piece just came right off. All right, let me just show you this. There's a little flat bone that lays right against here and runs up to your leg. It runs up along the other bone of your leg to give you that flexibility. And it's like pins in right here, just with ligaments basically. And the whole thing has removed along with the leg. So that's what we're looking at there. And you can see it very clearly. Now, I'm going to put some water on there, and then we're going to look at it closely. Okay, I want you to pay attention now. This is wet. All right, this thing's been sitting out, it scares her. So she puts it outside, and it's on this block. And it's moisture, it's a wet area up there. She's up in the mountains. And you can see all of these different colors and textures, and the different types of skin is the same as we have. Our lips are different than the cheek skin, and the eyeballs are different than the forehead and so forth. Now, but you don't see that when it's dry. You wouldn't see that. But when it's wet, you can see it quite clearly. There's a very different coloration to different areas. Now, here's the back of the head. Remember, it had a crown. All right, this crown here. And that goes to the back, and it makes, I think it was probably very similar to like a cobra. It looks like to me, because it looks like it can expand in the back. Now let's go to the back and look at it. Here it is right here. You see the head comes over this way. Now could it come around like this and sort of expand? Maybe. You see what that is? That's a serious smash to the back of the head. This area right here got whacked, the whole thing got whacked at once or whatever happened. That's blood coming out of there. When you see that and it gets moist, it's going to turn red. I've got stuff that turns red almost instantly as soon as you put some water on there. That's why I always talk about having the moisture. If you don't have the moisture, here's what it looks like without any moisture on it. You can't tell. You'd say, oh, that's somebody carved that, somebody molded that. Well, no. Once you know how to look at things, and underneath it's got the blood vessels, it's got the architecture of the throat. Like, you see the eyeball? Let me show you something. You see that? You see that different color? That's actually an eyeball. And, you know, they didn't fake this stuff. You know, I'm sure there's a lot of fake stuff, but this is not what you got here. This is real. This is zero question about this. This is a smashed in back of the head. And from underneath, like I say, got the blood vessels and so forth. And that's from Kim. And that thing is real. There's no question in my mind it's real. It has a vein and an artery coming up this straight up, which is just like us. And the red is the artery and black is the vein. And I believe it's the red ran this way, and that's the artery and that's the vein, because the black separates from the red, just like it does on us. You see that? Pay attention close to this. You see the color here? You see the texture and color and so forth? And then you see that line right there? This is right in front of his eyeball. It's got some kind of beak. You wouldn't notice this without the moisture. You just wouldn't notice it. And this little line here is similar to what you have here. There had to be a lot of movement right there. So there's going to be some change in the texture right in that area, just like there is here. Okay, we got some giant stuff, which is like these giant feet I'm going to show you. And I have a giant hair follicle right here. Sebaceous gland and everything is here. Right down to the root, where the muscle attaches. These things are not uncommon, they just, nobody's paid attention to them. Now, I have a friend, Tish Egerton, who went out and found a whole batch of these Notoes. She just wanted for just laying around. Now, I believe these are Notoes and they're eroded. So the toes are inside, I'm not sure, I really don't know. But they didn't want to look at them at the university, so she sent them all to me. I have these things here. She had, this here is a spring foot. And these are the springs. That one there, spring loaded, comes up. It's got a latch right there, pulls in, which pulls this from up here in to there. So you got one spring load here, and that pulls this in at the same time that's loading up. It works by itself. You don't have to have tendons and nothing. There's no bones, there's nothing. But you do have a heel, just like we have a heel, and it has a strap coming up. And that strap is a tendon, and that is the wrinkle zone. This little gooey stuff right here, that's the wrinkle zone. Normally that should have been flat and going straight up the side. See, this is what I was just showing you. That's the spring foot, and there's the strap going up, the ball. The same as you have here. You got the ball, the strap going up, and the strap broke right about here. And what happens with tendons, they get a wrinkle zone, and that's that wrinkle zone that I showed you, right there. That strap should have gone straight up and hooked up to that bone right there. That holds everything together. And when you snap that, it goes boing, and that's what happened. Now I have my own here, and that was another one from Tish. And again, nobody will take a look at them, so they're here. And she's got a whole foot, whole leg she found. Looks like to me. I'd like to have somebody examine it and tell me why I'm wrong. So immediately I hear, oh, those are just little sea creatures, a little, I can't remember what they are, nautiluses or something. But that is not the case. Those are the same as these springs here. All right, and that heel is the same as the heel we have. And there's a little lump underneath the bottom of it, just like we have. And there's a ball, just like we have. And there's a strap, just like we have. And this is nothing like we have. That is totally different. And you can see this here is like a rock zone. So this is going to be basically the same as what I have here. That's a gooey spot. It's going to have to rock. This has to twist, which means there's going to have to be a twist right there. And there it is. I mean, everything's here. The cradle's here, everything's here. There's nothing that isn't here. And I have the specimens here. And they still have, no question, you could get some DNA out of it if it would want to be tested. You get DNA out of this too. Inside is where, I mean, there's a coating of Felspar, which is collagen materials, and that were infused with aluminum silicates. That's what Felspar is. And some other inclusions too, but primarily it's aluminum silicates and a matty sort of a substance is what Felspar is, and that's what's on all these rocks. This one is deteriorated down to where you're right down to the springs. And I have other ones here that are just, they're crazy stuff. So I have to do a whole nother one on just the feet, because the feet are just stunning. I have at least 4 or 5 different specimens right here in my shop that I can present. Some of them are going to have to put them in a microscope, show you that. And I'll show you very carefully exactly what they are. Okay, this is the foot. This is the heel of the foot, that round ball. And here's what we find. This guy died. All these stones are his bones, his body parts. And here's the foot. This is huge. I don't know how big it is. Somebody sent this to me. I don't know. I get a lot of details on these other than the pictures. And this goes back quite a long time. Now here's another one. The toes are in there, but it's like a no toe, I would believe. But there is some toe structure inside there. And whether this had fully formed toes, I don't know. Now you see up here? See right there? That's where the bone came down. And they're all different styles. There's all different styles of no toes. You have this style right here. It has springs loaded. That's the heel. That's the actual heel. And that strap runs right up, and it would have run right up to the bone, which came down here. And that strap has a wrinkle zone in it. There's a wrinkle zone right in there. These are the springs. That's spring loaded, and then it pulled the second spring in. There's no bones in these. And we got a lot of these. There's not just a few. Here's another bunch of them. And these were taken to the university, and they said they just weathered that way. They're just rocks, nothing special. And then we even have a whole leg of it. There's a whole leg. And these are not sea creatures. This is like a tendon material. It's like keratin or keratin, something that very tough, just like tendons now. And then they had these little circular devices in there so they could twist and do. This stuff was all manufactured at one time, it looks like to me. It looks like to me. I don't know. But there's gigantic ones. You know, and that's the one I have right here. So we have a lot to look at here. But before we go there, I wanted to talk about asteroid Bennu, because that was part of my last presentation. And there's been no response from anybody that has anything to do with Bennu. And I've tried over and over to contact many of them, and I have had no response. So I think you should look at Bennu after you look at these kind of things and realize we're not getting the full story. We're not getting the full story. Everything that can be hidden is being hidden right at the moment, it seems to me.